If we were going to design an educational environment based on what we now know about how children learn best, what would it look like? This is your child. Well, it's not your child, but it's a physical representation of the average human learner called the homunculus. It's a model of the human body in proportion to the amount of the brain devoted to various sensory motor organs. Its name means little human, and it was given by its discoverer, Canadian neurosurgeon Wilder Penfield. New brain imaging technologies have shown us what Penfield figured out in the 1930s, that the hands get the most brain space. That's why learning with your hands is the fastest way to abstraction. Probably like most of you, I learned long division by memorizing abstract algorithms in school. But when I first took Montessori training back in the mid-1990s, I had many aha moments using the hands-on manipulatives, when those abstractions all made sense for the first time. I felt like I was touching those concepts instead of just thinking about them. Notice the tongue also. This is why young children put things in their mouths. So, an educational method based on the latest brain research needs to focus on hands-on learning because that's how children learn best. It makes sense, right? Young children are still developing their ability to comprehend language, so it offers an evolutionary advantage to learn without language. Brain imaging technology has also given us a better understanding of the so-called executive functions. These are the critical skills for modern life, centered around flexible thinking, or being able to adjust your behavior in response to unexpected changes, impulse control, or thinking before acting, and working memory, which allows us to hold key information in the mind while acting on it. Good executive functioning skills allow children to do such critical things as take initiative on getting new projects started, to plan and prioritize to set and meet goals, to be self-reflective enough to monitor how they're doing, to keep feelings in check when it isn't appropriate to express them openly, and to be organized enough to keep track of things physically and mentally. The area of the brain that lights up in brain scans during decision-making and emotional regulation is primarily the prefrontal cortex, shown here lighting up. Repetition of freely chosen tasks trains the brain to deal with novel tasks that involve these executive functions. So, an educational method based on the latest brain research needs to offer children the opportunity to choose their own tasks and repeat them at will for as long as they feel they need to, but no longer. And this will likely be different for each child in a classroom. Brain imaging technology has also given us a better understanding of why it's important to offer certain experiences early. The brain goes through bursts of development early on, and synapse formation declines dramatically after the child's third year. This means that children go through sensitive periods for learning certain skills at particular ages when the brain is most ready for those skills. The senses are developed first, as you can see here, then language, and then higher cognitive functions. So, brain-based education, whether that's at home or in early childhood centres or schools, needs to take advantage of those sensitive periods by targeting skills when children's brains are most open to them. Now, if we were going to design a learning environment based on preparing children for a 21st century workforce, what would that look like? Well, in 2006, Time magazine ran a cover story on education in the 21st century. It predicted that to succeed in a world of ubiquitous and rapidly changing information that is less and less confined to discrete subjects, schools will need to help children learn how to think rather than what to think. The authors concluded that memorizing large amounts of discrete and often unrelated information would no longer be necessary. And this was before the proliferation of these tiny, high-powered computers we all carry around now in our pockets that put the entire opus of human knowledge at our fingertips. Repetitive work on factory assembly lines as well as in white-collar jobs is increasingly being automated because computers do this better than people, and they don't need time off. Human jobs of the future will involve skills that are more difficult for computers, like those involving manual dexterity, such as cleaning or serving coffee, people skills needed for aged care workers and educators, creativity required by writers or software engineers, for example, or combinations of these needed by visual artists, for instance. Rather than recall bits of memorized information, workers of the digital age need to be able to know how to ask the right questions, then locate and interpret information from various sources and media. Modern workplaces no longer put a high value on obedience, memorization, and repetition, but instead are places where mistakes are encouraged as learning opportunities, and a premium is placed on collaboration as a way for employees to upskill one another. Employees are given freedom within limits and lots of choice over the direction they take because this encourages self-motivation and a determination to follow through. They are given uninterrupted work periods because this encourages focus and concentration and allows them to get into a highly productive state of flow where they are at their most creative. So, to prepare students for 21st century workplaces, learning environments would need to encourage softer essential skills such as creativity, critical thinking, adaptability, initiative, self-direction, risk-taking, time management, negotiation, and grace and courtesy also. So, what would a learning environment look like if it were designed to prepare people for modern workplaces based on what we know now about how children learn best? Ironically, such advanced, innovative learning environments have been around for almost 120 years now. Dr Montessori was recognized in her time as the leading educational innovator of the 20th century. Born to a middle-class Italian family in 1870, Maria Tecla Artemisia Montessori was the child of an era of explosive technological and social change throughout the world. Her life choices show a revolutionary thinker who not only challenged the social conventions of her day, but who embraced innovation and understood the importance of technological progress in the evolution of humankind. Even as a teen, she revealed herself as a young woman not easily intimidated either by technology or traditional Italian views on her place in society by enrolling in the Leonardo da Vinci Technical School with the intention of becoming an engineer. Most famously, in the 1890s, she defied intense public and professional antipathy, including that of her own father, to become one of only about 24 women in Italy to graduate in medicine by the turn of the 20th century. After having a child out of wedlock, she worked with children with special needs in the asylums of Rome using the most innovative methods of the time. Then she turned her attention to reforming educational practice. She studied philosophy and physical anthropology, and she used her observational skills gained through her medical studies to create what she called a scientific pedagogy. Montessori is the only educational system based on the scientific observation of how children actually learn. In 1907, she opened her first children's house in the slums of Rome for children of factory workers. She was supported by the factory owners who wanted these children kept out of trouble and off the streets. So she was able to develop her method free of state regulations. Dr Montessori would observe all day as the teachers used her methods. Then she'd make changes to her materials in the evenings and watch the reactions of the children the next day. From this, she realized that her previous work with hands-on methods with children with special needs, thought of at the time as retarded and incapable of learning, would benefit children without intellectual disabilities as well. Her students from the Roman slums aced the public exams, and soon her methods became a worldwide sensation. Before she was exiled in India by the war, there was an insatiable demand for her training courses all over the world. By 1911, Switzerland and Italy had both officially adopted Montessori in their public schools. Not long after, 13 states in the United States were set to adopt her method as the official public school pedagogy, and several states in Australia wanted to do the same. Among those who first welcomed the famous Dottoressa to the United States were Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison, leaders in technological innovation at the time. So how does her educational system work? This solar system graphic explains how the 3-year multi-age classroom makes real choice, personal connection, and collaborative learning possible. The central feature of the Montessori system is the 3-year age grouping, which energizes all others, like the sun energizes the solar system. This classroom structure mimics familial relationships. Children cycle through being the youngest or the awestruck follower, then the middle child or the observant and sometimes overconfident apprentice, and then the eldest, the experienced and nurturing leader over and over again. It frees students of the expectation that they should be the same as their peers of the same age. And it also adds stability by preserving the institutional memory of traditions, norms, and rituals in returning students. This flattening of classroom management, which is more often handled by older students instead of being imposed top-down by teachers, it frees the teacher of the need to manage the classroom all the time so that they can observe students well. The 3-year structure also orients children's minds to an appreciation of diversity by prompting them to look for commonalities. Research has shown that children in homogeneous groupings tend to search for differences, which promotes clique behavior, while children placed in diverse groups tend to look for ways that they're the same. The 3-year structure also makes possible real choice, which is the engine of motivation. After all, a centered child knows better what he or she is most ready to learn at any particular moment than a teacher who might be getting to know a couple of dozen other children at the same time. Choice is possible where the teacher is freed from having to manage the whole classroom at once. The teacher can observe students and guide them toward follow-up activities that suit their individual needs. And children can construct their own understandings at their own pace with concrete experiences. Children invest more of themselves in an activity if they've had some say in choosing it. They don't have to keep up with their peers or conform to the teacher's schedule. The 3-year age structure makes possible deep personal connections. Students build strong bonds of trust with the same teacher over 3 years. Teachers get to know their returning students well, so they know which impressionistic stories will capture their imaginations and motivate them best. This trust allows freedom of movement and association that in single-age classrooms might lead to chaos and undermine accountability. And this encourages children to feel safe enough to risk making mistakes. So standardized tests are less necessary because children are known, and there's also more trust between teacher and parents too. Authentic assessments show meaningful progress over time. Finally, the 3-year structure makes possible genuine collaborative learning, allowing students to learn from one another at least as much as they learn from the teacher. Peer-to-peer learning is enhanced in the 3-year setting because students are free to choose when, where, and with whom they engage in activities. Children don't all develop at the same pace, so a multi-age collaboration may imply a mentoring relationship, or it may be a collaboration of equals. Montessori students understand that everyone in the room, adults included, can be both student and teacher at different times. The 3-year age structure makes possible real choice, deep connection, and genuine collaboration. Giving children real choice unleashes a hidden reserve of motivation that is so easily extinguished when children are told what to do all the time. This learning environment on the left trains children to have the essential soft skills to thrive in modern workplaces like Airbnb headquarters shown here on the right that require independence. Notice any similarities? Montessori is a worldwide phenomenon. There are over 22,000 Montessori schools in 110 countries worldwide, with the most rapid growth now in China. As happened when Dr Montessori was alive, some governments, including that of Thailand for example, are again promoting Montessori in their public education system. There are over 5,000 Montessori schools in the United States, including about 500 public schools that use Montessori. 150 of those go all the way to year 12. This 15-minute video produced by the North American Montessori Teachers Association gives a glimpse into what a Montessori classroom for 3 to 6-year-olds looks like today.
The child under the age of 6 has an amazing ability to absorb knowledge. To gain control of her body, she needs to be free to move, manipulate, and explore her environment. The child who has the freedom to choose his own work will find increasingly challenging activities, gradually lengthening the time that he can maintain attention and focus on learning. Concentration and self-discipline emerge through freely chosen activities based on natural tendencies, joyful interest, and human dignity. Montessori called this prepared environment the children's house, an especially designed place for children ages 3 to 6. Maria Montessori founded the first children's house in 1907. She was a medical doctor and a scientist who understood that children teach themselves. After a little more than 100 years, Montessori education is the single most prominent pedagogy in the world, with 22,000 Montessori schools located internationally. Montessori education is based on universal human stages of development: infancy, early childhood, childhood, and adolescence, with carefully designed environments that challenge the sensitivities and potential at every level of development. Walking into a Montessori children's house, you might see children ages 3, 4, 5 and 6. This child-sized, home-like environment is inviting to young children. They are attracted to a variety of activities. You may have to search to find the teacher who is giving a lesson to a small group of children. The teacher has confidence in the children's natural desire to learn. She is the link between the child and the materials. In this child-centered environment, children choose their work. Montessori writes, "The house of the child should be lovely and pleasant." There is a relationship between the beauty of his surroundings and the activity of the child. Children want to help and work in a home-like setting. The practical life materials build a bridge from the home to the school. Children notice when the furniture is dirty, and they use child-sized working tools to scrub and clean it. Polishing objects develops fine motor skills and lengthens their ability to stay with a task from start to finish. Most appealing are activities where they learn how to prepare food using all their muscles and safe tools. Once they master cutting fruits and vegetables, they can handle more complex cooking challenges that involve reading recipes.
We're gonna put 2 scoops in there, okay? I'm gonna be careful.
Children gain a sense of accomplishment and pride when they learn how to use a drill and a hammer. They have a sense of dignity when they learn how to keep their children's house clean and in order. She cleans up what she spills without an adult scolding or giving unnecessary assistance. They make their house beautiful when they select just the right flower for the right vase and place it on the table they choose. The child tells us, "Help me to do it by myself." Independence in dressing is an important skill. They feel pride when they can dress and undress themselves. Tying a bow is more challenging and requires a lot of practice. Activities are sequenced from simple to complex. And one skill leads to another. Once children learn a task, they want to repeat as they gain mastery and develop fine motor skills and hand-eye coordination. Children experience their senses intensely. Handling these sensorial materials allows the child to clarify the many impressions he receives through his senses. Long and short, large and small, heavy and light. She plays games to match the loudest cylinders, the softest cylinders, the ones in between. Her ability to compare, contrast and make judgments is sharpened and refined. A simple material assembled by shape and colour lays the foundation for later understanding binomial and trinomial cubing. The child learns math through manipulation and handling of the concrete mathematical materials. The child's ability to reason, count, calculate and estimate leads to an understanding of the decimal system. Once the child knows the quantity and symbols for units, tens, hundreds and thousands, he can combine his quantity with the different numbers his friends bring. Children see in a concrete way that adding means putting their units, tens, hundreds and thousands together with others and ending up with an even bigger quantity.
6,788.
These activities are the foundation for understanding addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. When the child moves from the concrete to the abstract using manipulative materials, they experience the thrill of a discovery at an individual pace. Children under 6 find it easy to memorize number combinations through a variety of activities that build in repetition. Communication and language is infused in every aspect of the Montessori environment. Children listen to stories and poems.
She slipped through the star and fell in.
They freely converse. They play games with words and sounds. Soon the child begins forming words, sentences and stories. Writing comes before reading. He strengthens his fingers by tracing around and inside geometric shapes and creating beautiful designs. Each child learns at her own pace. With careful observation, the teacher knows how to show the child the next lesson which offers the right challenge to keep her interest alive. The child explores the world through globes and maps of continents and countries.
That's ballet.
They learn how to care for plants and animals. Classrooms often have a reptile, mammal or fish for children to observe and care for. They observe and record the growth cycle. Working outside provides new levels of responsibility and independence. Art is part of the everyday activities in the children's house. Children learn basic techniques like how to use scissors safely, how to apply glue, and how to use a paintbrush. Music is experienced as an individual or group activity. Children gather to sing songs, and the guide can accompany the songs with an instrument. A line of tape on the floor invites children to refine their movement. Some children struggle to balance themselves, and some can keep their feet on the line. They work to develop self-control. In many schools, the children have lunch at school, with an emphasis on healthy foods. They continue their work in the afternoon. The Montessori guide follows the child's lead. It is the guide's role to work with the child's inner motivation to enhance the process of self-creation.
I'm going to go to
The Montessori guide depends on her observations gathered over 3 years. She knows the developmental needs of each child, their particular strengths and quirks. She never unnecessarily interferes or corrects. She sets up and maintains the prepared environment with an atmosphere of calm and order, warmth, care, awareness, and joy. In a multi-aged environment, the 3-year-old child admires and respects the older child. Children help one another and learn social graces simply by having many opportunities to socialize. They learn how to return their work to the shelf, ready for the next child to use it. They learn to respect others' workspace. In a Montessori children's house, the child develops his whole personality through the freedom to move, make choices, and learn as part of a caring, respectful, and joyful community.
You scissors too. We both said it at the same time.
Dr. Steve Hughes, an eminent neuropsychologist who has spent many years studying Montessori, said that if a neuropsychologist designed a school today, it would not look like a conventional school, but more like a Montessori one. Dr. Hughes defined Montessori this way. There are many peer-reviewed studies over the last few decades published in prestigious journals, including Science and Scientific American, for example, that have shown significant and long-lasting effects on children's learning from Montessori education. Professor Angeline Lillard of Virginia University, who has done a lot of research into Montessori, published a study in Frontiers of Psychology in 2017. Lillard concluded that children who attend Montessori schools displayed differences favouring 6-year-old Montessori graduates in executive functioning, decoding, and early maths. They also displayed an understanding of social justice and social behaviours by the end of kindergarten. Those advantages were present early on and remained at grade 6. In summary, Dr. Montessori believed that the child constructs knowledge from their experience in the world, that learning is something that humans do naturally, that it happens best when it's not forced, and that the child is self-motivated by being given lots of appropriate choice. For Montessori, the aim is for children to love learning for its own sake, rather than because of tests, prizes, or other external motivations. Establishing lasting peace was Montessori's ultimate goal. She believed that, with a supportive environment, children naturally express the finest of their human tendencies, free of selfish aggression. Dr. Montessori was often asked, between the wars, how humankind could stave off another war. She said that all politics can do is to keep us out of war temporarily. Establishing lasting peace is the work of education. Montessori believed that lasting peace would come when children are raised in this kind of liberating environment, free of coercion and full of joy. These children will create the new peaceful human who is both an independent thinker and a collaborator down to their DNA. She said, "This is education, understood as a help to life, an education from birth, which feeds a peaceful revolution and unites all in a common aim, attracting them as to a single centre. Mothers, fathers, politicians, all must combine in their respect and help for this delicate work of formation, which the little child carries on in the depth of a profound psychological mystery under the tutelage of an inner guide. This is the bright new hope for mankind."